This is video 3. Okay, so the first point, oh, I forgot where I was at. Okay, yeah. Saturn is supposed to eat the child. Saturn is supposed to eat the child, right? The grandmother, or the grandfather, Cronus, right? So, and that's because it eats the sun, right? Okay, because the first point is where the child, that would be the child is conceived. Second trimester, as it would be, the first trimester would be at autumn equinox. Okay, second trimester, it's only at the second trimester, right? So, and the sun would be, it's still developing, right? So, or the child will be still developing, but the sun is the life of the son of the let's say the fetus or the baby son, the newborn is being the new developing son is being taken, right? Okay, because the sun is further from the east, right? It's coldest day furthest from the earth. So the sun is taken, right? So then it has to be. Then it's reborn if it makes its way through. It's reborn at Ra, right? At Aries, right? It rises again. It's the baby, right? The baby's born. So that's why Saturn is always supposed to be the Cronus, the old grandmother that's eating the child, or the grandfather that's eating the child, right? Okay. So that's what that means, and that's why it's seen as Satan, because it's wicked. Okay. It's dark, right? And cold as in cold spiritually, no emotion, right? Just barbarically eating the child, cannibalism, right? Okay, but that's the corrupted perspective of it. It's not the realistic perspective, okay? But it's supposed to represent death, though, right? Okay, because it takes the life of the sun, so that's why Saturn represents death, right? Okay, so the cosmic door, that's what I said. Okay, so we said the cosmic door at Taurus represents the entrance and the ascendance, to the universal, to intercourse with the universal mother, okay, at the beginning of, which starts at Aries, right? And the climaxing at Cancer. Okay, thus the cracking of the divine egg at Easter, right, and also with Taurus, correlating with Taurus, okay, which as we said represents Easter at the galactic center as it begins, right, because the black egg the divine mother represents the black hole, right? Okay, as Cancer represents the black hole, right? Okay. Because it's intercoursing with mother at the black hole, right? In the black hole. Okay, they're together, right? At Cancer. Okay, at the summer solstice? Yeah, okay. Thus the cracking of the divine, well, we already went there. Okay, we talked about Easter. We talked about the galactic center as it represents a black hole, as it represents Cancer, as it represents intercoursing, okay, as it represents the conception of the child, okay, so that represents at the new child, when the baby, let's say, that grows from Taurus, the cracking of the egg, Easter, intercourse, preparing for graduation by Mother's Day, then intercourse, and he becomes a man, right? Then becoming a man, he becomes a king, right? Because now he has a child, conceived a child, right? He conceived a nation, right? That's what having a child reflects, having a nation, right? So now he's the king, right? But because he planted the seed, right? Then the seed goes through it goes through its developmental stage, right? To become a fetus and then become a baby, right? At Ra. Delivered a baby at Ra, right? Okay. And where she delivers the baby, and the process starts all over again, right? The divine wedding takes place at the summer solstice, right? Okay. And then we said we also have Independence Day up there as well, right? Because he came, he ejaculated. Well, I can't say he ejaculated, but yeah, he ejaculated, right? He ejaculated because he came, right? He climaxed, right? He had to climax to have the child, to conceive the child, right? So that's Independence Day. Through all that fire, through all that test, through all those trials, through all those tribulations, he finally got a chance to intercourse, okay? That's what the little boat in Ra and the boy starting out at the boat in Ra in Egypt means, okay? Ra is on his ark traveling through the celestial sphere, That's what it all means. It's telling the divine story of the sun as it traverses the universe, as it intercourses with the universe, as it intercourses with the universe. Okay, that's what all of that means. Okay, so anyway. Okay, so the procession of the planets in the universe represents a divine love story for all the cosmos to see. The light bearer, Venus, okay, the morning star, and the celestial king, which is represented by the soul, which is represented by Leo, the lion, right? And that's why they have Babylon, baby lion. As the baby lion traverses the universe to become king of the universe, king of Africa, with Scar and whatever, what was the other one's name? Mustafa was his father. But what was the lion? Simba. Yeah, and Simba was to become a man, right? Okay. A king, right? And that's why he said he'd always see him in the stars, right? Because they're all there, right? Okay. So, And Venus is the light bearer, right? Because she's carrying the light of the seed of the sun, right? Okay, and they call it the bear, right? And what's a Dajjal supposed to be? A bear, a big ugly bear, a big ugly ass bear, a baron, right? A baron, okay? Okay, because he can't handle, he can't, well, we won't go there, but he's supposed to be a baron, right? Bear, he's a bear, a baron, right? Okay, a big ugly hairy bear man, right? Okay. So it's a love story that they've corrupted. Okay? Okay. Okay, so Leo meets at, okay, where are we going? Okay, so it's a love story. The morning star and the celestial king, Leo, meet at the spring equinox, where it all begins, where she meets him as her child, her baby. Okay, and then he's born. Okay, as he's born, okay, but now he's growing. He's delivered as an egg, right? Then the egg cracks, right? Then meets the mother on Mother's Day. Graduates, intercourses. That proves themselves, right? You're talking, proves themselves, but or marries, right? Has a child of his own, becomes king, then has plants a seed, thus he becomes king, has a nation, beginning of a nation, the first trimester of the child at the fall, second trimester at the solstice, winter, third trimester, the child is born again. So it's born again. That's why it's born again. The cycle goes on and on and on. Okay? Now, okay, so, okay, so the sun enters the black hole to crack and penetrate the cosmic black hole, where he releases the sperm at Cancer when Ra is most fertile. Ramadan, hot, when the summer is most hot, right? Okay, and we, Okay. And it's the hottest, as we said, Ramadan represents the hottest time of the year, right? So, okay. So, the celestial procession in the universe reflects the divinity of man and woman. The three celestial roles in the universe: mother, queen, okay? Because she's a queen, right? Because now she's the wife of the king, they both are mother and father, right? Father of the nation, father of the newborn nation, right? Okay, now, so, and that's to reflect the courtship of a man and woman. So when they meet, a man and a woman meet, okay, they should have a courtship. Okay, that would be the procession, like the procession. Don't just get, there should be some courtship there. Okay, not just jump into marriage, because you jump into marriage, you don't even know each other. You didn't even go through the celestial cycle. You should go through the celestial cycle. Okay, Now, okay, so we said that, okay, that's how man, that's the procession of man and woman, right? Okay, so the penetration takes place at Cancer, okay, which represents the marriage, the consummation, the sexual climax, Father's Day, King's Day, Independence Day, pregnancy of the Divine Mother. And Libra is where Venus delivers. Well, I said that before. Venus is where she delivers a child. That in the Babylonian perspective, she delivers a child, then she becomes a fallen woman, a whore, mates with another man, which would be Mars, and then has a baby for Mars, and that would be those underworld children who come up to the surface and spook the rest of the world. Those demons, right? The warmongers, and take the life of the golden children of the sun, right? So that's a Babylonian perspective, okay? So, okay. But in reality, she doesn't have the child until Ra, until it goes through the trimesters, the three trimesters, okay? So, okay. So, okay. Okay, so the king is going to have, now the king has an heir, he has his nation, right? He has his hair, he has his mane, right? He has his big mane, right? Okay. An heir to his throne, right, to carry on his legacy, right, to carry on his nation, to take care, to guide his nation, continue his nation, right? Okay, as represented, the gift of a divine child, right, that is delivered to the universal Father, the Son, right? The Son is reborn, okay, by the celestial divine black mother who gives birth to his child at the at Ra, okay, completing the cycle as we said as it begins at Aries, okay. Again, the delivery always takes place, okay, at Ra, okay. It always takes place at Ra. The delivery of the egg takes place at Ra. I forgot what the rabbit meant. The rabbit has great significance too. Okay. The rabbit, rabbi, probably for rabbi. Okay, that's where the rabbit comes in, the rabbi. Okay, but we won't go there. I'm sure it has something to do with that, but I forgot there's another reason too. Okay, so the delivery takes place at Ra, which is also, okay, takes place at Ra. Okay. Okay. So, the Muharram 3rd, 1439, September 23rd, will represent what? The child, right? That prophet born of a virgin, as it represents a biblical perspective, that is supposed to be born 7 years later. Okay? So, 7 years later, what would that be? 7 years later would be 7 years later after 1439 or after 2017. Well, Uranus is supposed to go in Taurus, right? And at that point, it's supposed to be a big download for the Earth, right? So 7 years after that, okay, then Uranus would be going into Gemini, right? Gemini represents what? Gemini represents the door of the universe, right? It represents the door. So that would represent the prophet born of a virgin at the door, okay? And that would be what? After 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 2025 or 2026, right? Okay, that would represent that time, okay? When the prophet born of a virgin would be at the door, okay? That's when he'd be at the door, okay? Okay. And that's what? And that would be at Gemini, okay? So, now we're going to go here. Okay, so. Okay, now we talked about Saturn, right? Saturn representing the grandfather, father time, the end of time, the pale face, right? Death. Okay, because what happens at the winter solstice? Yeah, the sun is furthest from the earth, right? It's the coldest time of the year. Okay? And that's seen as hell. Ooh. Winter is hell, right? Winter is hell. So, winter being hell, okay, it's taking the life of the sun, right? Okay. The evening star is seen as, at that point, is seen as taking the life of the sun, okay, is seen as, as we said, the infamous hell from the Nordic perspective is seen as the infamous hell, okay? It's a Nordic version of the divine ancestors. That's a Nordic version of the black mother, okay? The Aphrodite, known as Aphrodite. But Aphrodite is what Venus represents. The Aphrodite. The poofy hair, Aphrodite, right? Who has hair like a sponge, right? The fluffy hair like a sponge, right? Okay. And the holy water represents the holy water she rode up in, the shell. She was supposed to rode up in the beach on the shore, okay, from the holy sea. The holy sea representing the holy water, which is representative the male sperm. Holy water is water does not represent the woman; it represents sperm. Okay, because holy water is supposed to be because okay, this is a story how Aphrodite came into being. Okay, now Aphrodite was supposed to come into being because Uranus was cut off. We talked about that in another video. Okay, Uranus representing the black man, representing the phallic of the black man as it represents Osiris, right? And his phallic being cut off, and his phallic being represented today by what? The Washington Monument, or the what's it called? It's called a Cleopatra's Needle. Yeah, obelisk. An obelisk is supposed to represent the black man's penis, right? Okay, as it represents the universal penis, which represents Uranus, right? So Uranus' penis was supposed to be cut off because Uranus represents a higher consciousness of man, and Uranus supposed to have all the other planets in between, from Gaia representing the Earth, Gaia representing the Earth, and Uranus being the higher consciousness, right? So when what is man made of? He's made of flesh and spirit. So Uranus would represent the spirit, okay? Gaia would represent his body, the body of man. So Uranus was supposed to be so mean and so bad that one of his children cut off his penis, right, and threw it away. Okay? That penis is what Aphrodite is supposed to be. She's supposed to be a male penis, right? Okay? So she rode in on water, right? She rode in, she came into to land, to earth, on a shell. That's why you see a woman standing up on a shell with all that hair, because it's supposed to be represent the crown of the woman, the black woman, right? Aphrodite, okay? The crown, her hair, right? So she's supposed to become, she's what the penis was, right? Uranus, she's supposed to be Uranus' penis, right? Okay, so, and what comes out of the penis but sperm, right? So the water, the holy water, is the sperm, right? So she rode in on the sperm, right? Okay, so that's what that's what the holy water is, okay? That foam is, right? Okay. So, where are we at? Okay, so Aphrodite is supposed to be represent the man, the male penis, right? Okay, because that's what she was. Okay, like my flower, my rose. Anyway, okay, so so the Aphrodite. Okay, so the black mother is the Aphrodite, right? What Venus is supposed to represent, right? So she's supposed to be Venus, right? But in all actuality, according to Babylon spirituality, and Aphrodite and all this stuff, the Aphrodite, right? Venus represents the Aphrodite, right? The black mother, right? But then again, but Uranus is supposed to be the father of all humanity. So everybody, male and female, is supposed to come from his penis, right? Right, okay. So not only Aphrodite, but all the planets, right? It's both the constellation. I'm not the constellation, but all the planets is supposed to be the children of Uranus, right? Even Zeus and all of them, right? Okay. Which represents Jupiter, right? Okay. So they're supposed to be the children of Uranus, right? The children of the man, right? Because and Uranus represents what? The man, the black man, right? Okay. The penis of the black man, right? So all humanity came from that penis, right? Even the Aphrodite, okay? Representing the planets, all the planets came from that. All people represent as we the children represent the planets, right? We would as human beings we represent the planets. We would represent the let's say the black man would represent Uranus and all the humanity that came from him. Okay, but Uranus would represent the father of all the planets, right? Just as the black man represents the children of all his penis represents is where all the humanity came from, right? Okay. I know the stories get kind of mixed up and all this kind of stuff because there's so many versions of it, so many interpretations, right? Okay, but we're basically the one we're looking at is the one that influences our society, our consciousness, right? Okay. The one that has framed our consciousness by which the holidays correlate to, okay? Okay. Okay. So let me see. Okay. So as we said, the evening star, or the grandmother, or you can say it as grandmother or grandfather, whatever your choice, is old, right? Represented by Saturn or Cronus. It eats the sun, right? Therefore it eats the babies. It eats its own child. That's what it has it eating its own child. But really also represents it represents the changing of the time, the celestial time, right? On a bigger scale, because they said what Saturn used to be the sun, okay, but what it represents is the changing of the catastrophic events that occur after when that Saturn was no longer the sun. That's when that the realignment of the universe takes place. The 24,000 year cycle ends and a new cycle, 24,000 year cycle begins. All the climactic changes, right, that we experienced as we went through the last 24,000 year cycle that ended the 15th I believe it was 15th or 14th. Well, it ended in 2015. I think it was 2015. I do believe when we went through all those blood moons and all that stuff. Okay, that's when the time was the 24,000 year cycle ended, which was anticipated on the Mayan calendar in 2012. Right? Okay. 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 So as we said. So the infamous hell, which is according to the Nordic perspective of Saturn is hell, right? According to the Nordic perspective, okay, and because it's wintertime and it's cold and it's hell to some people, right? Okay, and it represents the underworld, right? The world of the dead. Okay, the world that's supposedly ruled by Osiris. He rules the underworld, right? Okay, so okay, so and that is what? Let me see if I really want to do that. Okay, and that would be what? Represented by Saturn, represented by Satan, right? Because that would be a Venus, in the underworld, right? That would be Venus in the underworld. That would be her let's say her crown, not her crown, but her throne. Okay, that would be her throne, right? After she falls after she falls at the autumn equinox, okay, then her throne in the underworld, just like her throne at the top world would be Cancer, her throne in the underworld would be Saturn, right? And that would be Satan, right? So her children, the children of Satan by Mars, the reptilians, would be against Venus, and that's where she would be the evening star, right? The evening queen, the queen of the night, right? When she's supposed to be, the queen of the night, supposed to be, the most incredible time for a man, right? As a husband, that's where she'd be the wife. That would be her throne as the wife, right? That the Cancer would be her throne as the mother, right? But they don't want to see it that way. They want to see it as black and white, death and life, right? Where she conceives life and then she takes life. She conceives life at Cancer, and she takes life because the sun is the hottest, right? At the summer, the closest to the earth, and she takes life when the sun is the furthest, right? Okay, so that's where she's supposed to be her most wicked, right? In the underworld, with Nordic perspective, Babylonian perspective too. Okay, so and she eats her own children, right? She's a bitch, right? A dirty bitch, dirty cannibal bitch, right? Okay, because she's taking the life of her son, her son, right? Okay, okay, so, okay, and the father of their children, the reptilian children, are Mars, right? Because he's Scorpio, right? Which makes her even more wicked, right? Because she got a husband who's a killer, right? Okay, a warmonger, right? And then she's a devil, right? Because she eats her children, right? She's Satan, she's Saturn, right? Okay, so her children, the children of Saturn, are against the children of the only begotten, right? So her children, that's what you have, the war against the night and day, the war against life and death, right? The war against human race and the golden children of the sun and the warmongering children of death, right? We have the children of life fighting against the children of death, right? Both have the same mother, but both are supposed to have the different fathers, right? Okay, children of the devil is represented by Satan, okay? Children of God, represented by the sun god, right? The golden children of the golden children, right? Okay, so that's what we got going on there, okay? Because her throne is Saturn, right? Okay. And her children are reptilians, right? Dragon children, right? Scorpio children, okay? And the two shall never meet, right? The two, one is born of life and one is born of death, right? Death and life cannot commingle. They cannot breed, right? Can't have death and life in the same body, right? Okay. So, the two, they have their own families, right? They have their own they breed only with their own, right? And what do you have? But that's where we get racism too. And what do you have but those blue bloods incest, right? They breed among themselves, right? Cousins and sisters and brothers and all this kind of stuff, because they don't breed with the children of life. They don't breed with the children of soul, right? The children of Soliman, the children of Solomon, the nation of Solomon, right? They don't do that, right? They don't crossbreed, right? The children of Mars do not breed with the reptilian children of Mars, and Satan do not breed with the children of the sun and Venus, the morning star, or Aphrodite, the morning star. They only breed with the whore, okay, and the whore, Satan, and the warmonger, okay, Satan and death, right? Only Satan and death breed, right? To have reptilian children who kill, right? Okay, so that's the story that's going there, okay. So okay. So now, okay. So on the physical Oh, okay, I didn't finish that. The evening star Venus, Saturn, is the infamous hell in the Nordic version of the divine celestial black mother Aphrodite. Saturn reflects the intense, terrifying power Venus has to take life, the life of man, right? The life of the sun, right? Okay, so that's why they don't breed, and that's why in the Vatican they don't breed. They're supposed to be married to the church, right? They brother fuckers, right? Because the woman takes life, right? So they don't want to give life to. They don't want to die. They don't want to die, right? They don't want her to take their soul. The woman takes the soul of the man, right? She takes that soul. So therefore, they don't breed with they say they're married to the church. No, they breed with one another. They're brother fuckers, right? Okay, because breeding with a man would only give them more soul power, right? Okay, they would maintain whatever soul power they have left over, right? Okay, when they, well, that's the story. Okay, that's the story they would tell you, but 9 times out of it's not about soul power. Well, but the woman's supposed to take life, right? And right, original sin is connected to the woman, right? Because what? She was supposed to eat the apple and give it to her husband, thereby introduce him to death, right? Okay. So she's blamed for original sin. She's blamed for the fall. She's blamed for death, right? Well, part of all that scenario goes to this, their retelling of the Babylonian, from the Babylonian perspective, right? Okay, but in reality, the children of let's say the Mars, okay, the reptile, the scorpion, the reptile, the dragon, does not mate with the woman because he does not want to lose power, because she represents death, right? At the point of Satan, okay, or Saturn, okay, she represents Satan, okay. So, as we said, okay, the black holy mother represents Satan, the whore, the fallen woman, right? Okay, because what did she do? She fell from the garden and tried to get her, and got her husband to fall too, right? Okay, so okay, Saturn reflects the intense, terrifying power Venus has to take life. Saturn's frostbiting hell, bending power to consume the soul of her children, born of the only begotten. Venus, or hell's frostbiting cold, okay, is strong, and it consumes the soul of every living thing, okay? It consumes the soul of the living to give life to her children of the dead, okay? So she consumes the soul of the living to give life to her children of the dead, right? In the underworld, right? Okay. And that's Venus as Saturn, right? Because she has her, I'm going to go to video 4.